Hello and welcome to Bespoke Unit, I'm CP, and in this video I'm reviewing Williams Humbert Canasta Sherry. Typically in these videos I start by introducing the formula that was used to conduct the review. However, normally we use the Bespoke Unit liquor formula, and since this only caters to alcoholic spirits, it wouldn't be fair to judge a wine using the same parameters. So instead, I'm using this WSET tasting sheet. However, I won't be following the exact same systematic review. I'm using it just as a reference only. So Williams Humbert Canasta, which means basket in Spanish, is a cream sherry. This means that it is based off an oloroso sherry that has been aged using oxidative aging rather than any flour or yeast like a fino or amontillado sherry, and has then been sweetened, and in this case it has been sweetened using Pedro Jimenez sherry, which has a very high residual sugar content. In this case it has 132 grams per litre of sugar, and in terms of alcoholic strength you're looking at 19.5 ABV. I would recommend that if you do drink this, that you would sample it at around 12 degrees Celsius, that is 53.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So with that all being said, let's jump straight into the review. We're going to start by looking at the appearance. So here we have a very dark, sombre, almost like aged amber, quite intense in terms of robe. It's reminiscent of perhaps aged tree sap, and when you swirl it in your glass you get great viscosity that is shown by some thick legs down the side of the glass and some scallops. So moving now onto the nose. Quite intense, especially if it's been left in a glass for a while. And by the way, normally you would use a Copter nosing glass for sherry, but I'm just using a normal wine glass. This is absolutely fine. You're looking at some primary notes of figs, some raisins, and then in the secondary notes, maybe tertiary notes, some walnuts, some cinnamon. Very fine, it's very, very faint though. We're really more focusing on dried fruits. Next is the palate, of course, and it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Overall, very, very sweet. As you can see, I'm struggling to speak a little bit because of a high level of acidity. However, this is somewhat offset by the level of sweetness. It's kind of masked by the sugar content. It's similarly the alcoholic strength and its full-bodied qualities are also kind of offset, kind of rounded off by this thick, syrupy, sugary rush, but not in a way that is perhaps too cloying or unpleasant. Indeed, it's very easy to drink. You're going to get some pronounced flavors, primarily of figs and raisins again. In the secondary flavors, you can expect to experience perhaps some cocoa, although this is going to be very, very mild to the point of being almost imperceptible. And then in tertiary flavors, expect perhaps some walnut or perhaps some cinnamon, given that it has been going through an oxidative aging process. The finish itself, relatively long, but more towards the medium long. You do still get this sort of sweet raisin note that's quite vinous, that does last on the palate for a while before it fades completely. The next, moving on to the overall experience, and this isn't anything to do with the WSET sheet, this is more the Bespoke Unit twist, where we take a look at all the different facets of the beverage. It has an overall modern design that does incorporate some of the traditional elements. You have pressed into the glass the year in which it was founded, Williams Humbert, some other details here. At the back you have the Jerez DO certificate, and the front has this kind of creamy color with a part of the logo from the center that echoes, is sort of stenciled into the side. As for the cork, it has a removable or reattachable cork rather than just a regular wine cork. This is probably because Williams Humbert are quite aware that people are going to be not drinking this in only one sitting. As it is an oloroso sherry, it will last longer once opened. However, I wouldn't give it much more than a week, as otherwise it's going to start to lose some of its potential. And on top of that, since there's added sugar, that also acts as a preservative for the wine, so it will probably last really maybe even 2 weeks, but I think that would be pushing it. I would try and consume it as quickly as possible once it has been opened. And then in terms of value for money, you're looking about $20 for this wine, which for an entry, good quality cream sherry is a very good price, and it gives you a nice introduction into this style of wine. And finally, let's take a look at some pairings. So firstly, this is probably going to be best associated with dessert, especially during the winter time. You could consider it with things like Christmas cake, mince pies. You could probably go a bit further with some apple pies, fruit pies, and other types of fruit-based tart. Otherwise, it can go quite well with certain cheeses, perhaps blue cheeses or soft cheeses. If that's what you decide to do, I would highly recommend that you have it with maybe a fig or quince paste, which would then really be able to extend those sweet caramelized flavors. Otherwise, we quite like cigars here at Bespoke Unit, so I've selected something that I think would go quite well. It's the Plasencia Reserva Original, which we've actually reviewed, and you can see our review here in the top right-hand corner, as well as in the description below. This is quite a spicy cigar that, although it does have character, doesn't have too much body, so then it would be able to contrast the flavors of the wine quite nicely without it overwhelming the overall palate. That's all from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any questions about the Canasta Sherry, or if you'd like to share your own experiences. If you want to learn more about sherry wine and other fortified wines, head to bespokeunit.com/wine/sherry. Head in the description below for the link if you can't be bothered to write that in the address bar above. And until next time, why don't you head to bespokeunit.com and see all the other lifestyle subjects that we cover? I'm sure that there will be something that you will love.